we're back. It's Penn State week, officially. Is it me or does it seem like we've talked about this game now for 4 months?
Because is this Penn State 2025?
Easy peasy lemon squeezy. It has been a while, but finally it's here. Penn State week. Episode number 570 of Three Guys Before the Game.
Are you sure?
We are.
Did you get that audited?
That's the Senator. That is the Hoppy. And we're ready to do this thing. Thanks so much for being with us. We got a lot coming your way. For those of you that are coming to the game this week, we got a lot of special stuff that we want to show you and guide you through. Three Guys Before the Game is brought to us, as always, by Comax Business Systems, West Virginia's place for keeping West Virginia's business data safe, secure, and efficient for 25 years. That's more than 24.
That is.
Yep.
Yes. Correct, sir.
Three Guys also brought to us by GoMart. Get yourself a GoMart rewards card. Go to gomart.com for details. Get in that game. Score the ultimate tailgating package at GoMart. Enter to win. I guess GoMart's doing something different now for fans that don't want to stop on their way to the game. If you're coming up one of the major interstates in West Virginia, you got this truck that'll come alongside your vehicle. That arm comes out, hooks up to your gas tank, and they refill you.
Like how airplanes do sometimes. Yeah.
Don't do that.
I don't think that's confirmed yet.
Congratulations.
That might be in development, but it's not confirmed for this weekend.
Efforting.
Thank you.
Congratulations to GoMart for that. Three Guys brought to us by Lou Wendell Marine Sales in St. Albans. They sell family fun. Visit Lou Wendell Marine Sales.
Heck of an idea if you could do that.
.com. Boy, that would be nice. That would be nice.
Let me just say something. That would be extremely dangerous, okay? No, extremely dangerous.
No, because if they can do it with airplanes, they could certainly do it with cars.
Well, you know, when they do it with airplanes, okay, granted, that might be a little difficult. But there's nobody else around. You want to do that on 79?
There's a bend or two in the road.
Is somebody driving down the road not paying attention?
We could figure it out.
Add details.
Three Guys also brought to us by Tudor's Biscuit World. Start your day the homemade way. Tudor's Biscuit World. They're going to get busy, man. Game weeks for them. Woo!
Noon game.
Right,
so you need some early food.
People be wanting them biscuits.
A couple of those Mountaineers that won the World's Championship.
Yeah.
Yep.
Three Guys also brought to us by Conley CPA Group, providing value beyond numbers. All right, let's do this thing.
By the way, I got some numbers. I had to stop myself again. I was so deep in the weeds, I didn't even know what I was looking at anymore.
He was
like, what is this? What does this mean? Why am I looking? How did I end up on this page? What's it mean? What am I looking for? Shut it down. Stop. But I do have a couple that I found of some interest.
No, your stuff is usually. I mean, your stuff is next level stuff. So
we got a lot going on. The food court opens tomorrow, which is Wednesday. We're recording on Tuesday, and the food court we'll talk about in detail. But I got a lot of text in the last several days, people saying, okay, time, where. So time, super simple. 4 o'clock until 10 o'clock, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 4 p.m. until 10 o'clock, Wednesday, Thursday,
Eastern
Friday.
time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you might want to call Brett Yormark. They might want to make it 9 or something. Anyway, and then on Saturday, 8 a.m. until noon. 8 a.m. until noon on Saturday. And then we'll do it every week after, Friday, Saturday, every week after. We're not doing Wednesday every week after. We're just doing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get the season started.
Just go 1 week at a time. Just tell them this week, right? Wednesday through Saturday, University Avenue, right next to Daniels.
Correct.
If you miss it, you're not looking because the giant Empire State Building size trailer that Rev Kev has for all that barbecue sitting right there.
Correct.
Huge.
Massive. That's been placed. We'll talk about that coming up. Also, the debut of our latest beer through the folks at Parkersburg. They're tremendous. Tremendous. We got a new beer. We're going to debut it. In fact, we're going to sample it on this episode. That'll be coming up in just a little bit.
Well, you guys are. I got an early sneak peek preview.
You did.
Oh, you had some already?
Had some.
He went over to Jim's house, the guy over there from Parkersburg. And
Parkersburg Brewing Company.
Yeah,
Jim.
Yeah,
oh, really?
Had a little taste.
Went back to his back porch there on Saturday. Had about 11 of them.
Kind of like I respect you two. I respect both of you. So I was kind of like your taster ahead of time.
Oh, thank you.
Pre-taste. So Hoppy and I'll taste it.
Just in case.
Thank you.
All right, so here we go.
I appreciate it.
You'll like it.
By the way, you know what happens if you try to fuel your vehicle while it's running?
Yeah, you shouldn't do that.
You know what? You see the warnings?
Yeah.
Because there's vapors and there's electricity and can cause fire and explosion. So before the GoMart folks start researching that, and follow Tony's suggestion, know that there's a high risk there.
Let me just tell you something. They got a chief engineer in charge of petroleum distribution. That's that gopher that they use. That guy's in charge of that. That gopher is in charge. He figured it out. He didn't worry about no vapors.
You see the burns on the side
By
of
the
his
way,
face?
wait till you see this can here. This
it's a nice looking can.
Can's gorgeous. Can is gorgeous. All right,
go ahead. Get into it.
On Thursday, when we come back, we're going to do the actual keys to the game. This episode is that we are giving you, speaking of gophers, we're going to give you nuggets. We got nuggets, Hoppy.
Okay.
Nuggets.
Well, hold on. Before you do the nuggets, I think Hoppy has a take. He wants to go first.
Is it under the Conley CPA umbrella?
Oh, okay.
Don't you want to go first?
Sure, because mine pales in comparison to yours.
Well, I don't know if it pales, but you're probably going to go big picture. I'm going to go down into some.
Yeah, you go micro, I go macro. This is a must-win game for Penn State.
Oh, I see what he did there.
This is a must-win game for Penn State. Why? Because if you read what's been written all offseason about Penn State, if you watch any of the podcasts about Penn State, of which there are 77 of them that are out there, what are they saying about Penn State? Brad, what's James Franklin done over 10 years?
He's won a lot of games.
Won a lot of games, right?
Yeah.
What hasn't he done?
Struggled with Michigan and Ohio State.
Right.
He hasn't won a world's championship.
He's not won a world's championship, has not gotten to the playoffs. They've won New Year's Day bowl game, going to New Year's Day bowl games. They win 10 games. Yet there's still this grumbling that exists because they have a poor record against Ohio State and against Michigan.
And no Ohio State on the schedule this year.
What's that?
And no Ohio State on
No,
their
Michigan.
schedule.
They have Ohio State.
Oh, is it Michigan? One of the two.
Michigan's not on it. So this year, and their 2022 recruiting class was ranked like 6th in the country. So they got this recruiting class. It's reaching fruition. They have their quarterback back. Brad, they got those running backs. They got those 2 defensive ends. Mm-hmm. They believe they are loaded. They are loaded.
I think they are loaded.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
they are loaded. So the expectation is they can hardly contain themselves, not the players, they can hardly contain themselves from saying this is the year. This is the year, especially with the expanded playoffs, to make the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs. So what can they not afford to do? They
probably shouldn't come in here and lose.
Right. They can't stub their toes. Now you can with the 12 team you can stub your toe and still get in there. But you still got to play Ohio State. You still got to play USC on the road. You still got to play Wisconsin. So it gets harder if you have to do that. So I think and they're not going to fire James Franklin, even though they grumble in Happy Valley all the time because he hasn't won the big game because his payout is $50-some million and he's got 7 more years on his contract and he's won a bunch of games. So they're not going to do that. But there still is grumbling because there's a feeling that they still haven't reached Penn State level. But this is the year they're supposed to do that. So this is a gigantic game for them. There is much more pressure on them in this game than there is on West Virginia.
First of all, more Penn State pressure.
I think that's well stated, Hoppy.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Kind of amazing when you do look at their schedule. Just look at the schedule. UCLA, USC, Washington. I mean, here it is, man. We talked about it. It's happening, and it's happened.
But what's important, too, is who's not there.
Weird as heck.
Is no Michigan, no Oregon.
And they got the Buckeyes at home.
They got them at home.
2nd.
So they think that it's laid out for them. And when you read the analysis on the Penn State version of this, it's Brad, just don't stump your toe at West Virginia. You got to start West Virginia.
Right. I think you're right, Hop. I think you're exactly on this. I do.
Thank you.
I do. I think you're right on top of it. Yeah, that's good. That's a good take.
That's the macro.
That's good.
That's good.
He had a good one.
Good start.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you held
Hey, see you guys later.
Good start.
That's the best. That's the best I'm going to do all day.
Let's do this.
So I checked the numbers. We'll just go right to the numbers. Here comes the heater.
Yeah, why not?
Let's jump into the analytics portion.
This is kind of like we normally call this spreads on stats.
5.
Actually, we're going to call this nuggets.
Brad's Bits.
Brad's Bits. Brad's Bits. That's what we're going to do. Brought to us by the Conley CPA Group, providing value beyond numbers, complete public service accounting, consulting, serving clients throughout West Virginia and surrounding states. Getting ready for their 40th anniversary, which means they've stood the test of time. They've amateurized themselves nicely. Outsourcing accounting, they can do that for you. If you don't have a bookkeeper in-house, they can outsource your accounting. You can also outsource your CFO services. Frees up your time so you can do your thing, run your business instead of worrying about the numbers. Let Conley worry about the numbers because why? Because they provide value beyond numbers. Okay. Brad's Bites.
I'm anxious for that. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Well, a couple different things here.
You in mid-season form, or is this your opener too?
No, just opener, because what I always tell you about these numbers, the numbers get better as we get later into the season and we get some data. The numbers I'm going to give you right now, if I'm being honest, I don't know if they matter at all. It's about last year's teams. I don't know if these matter at all. They're fun, something to think about, but this isn't reflective of this year's team.
Right.
So that's why I think this is at the same time one of the really tricky parts if you're into prognostication or you wager. This is what's really hard.
Right.
Nobody knows.
No, you don't
Neil and James Franklin don't know.
No.
If we're being honest. But I think that's what also makes it fun.
Yes.
Right? All the potential hypotheticals, all the different things that go into it. How much better is West Virginia? Is the offensive line as good? Is Garrett Green that much better? Are the receivers that much better? How about Penn State? Guys, they lost. Are there two defensive ends as good as advertised? There's just so many questions that you go into. So take these with a grain of salt because, again, it's last year's stuff, and we'll try and make some sense of does it factor into this game.
So what you're saying is, to underscore your point, Florida State, Georgia Tech last week was a perfect example of you don't know.
And, yeah, and it's interesting because you watch that pregame, and there were 19 different reports, including a special breaking news. I don't know if they played the music or just came breaking news for telling us that Florida State's defensive line was the best in the country.
Who reported that?
I don't know, one of the ESPN guys. Best defensive line in the country. Had to break into game day and talk about that. Okay? I don't know if you watched the game. And maybe they end up being the best defensive line in the country. They were not in Ireland. Georgia Tech lined up, said, oh, is that right? Oh, is that right? I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We're going to run right at you. And I find, and this isn't a prediction that West Virginia is going to have the same success against Penn State that Georgia Tech did against Florida State.
Right.
But I think if you're a West Virginia fan, you look at that and go, oh, that's interesting, because this is a really talented Penn State front. Not just those two stud defensive ends that are going to get after. They've got multiple guys in the interior that create what I think is the biggest matchup of the game. West Virginia's new, air quotes, offensive line against that great Penn State defense. Does Penn State stalemate that, or can West Virginia run it when it wants to run it inside? There's where the game is right there. And if you can't run it inside, then you start to bounce out. Can you do some of that? All right, we're going to look at that. But what Georgia Tech did to that Florida State defensive line, they moved them, not just did a bunch of motion and shifts, which, what's West Virginia like to do with this group? Some motion and shifts, right? So it wasn't an exact blueprint on how to attack that, but it was a good example of a team that had a veteran quarterback that likes to run the football, that had a good offensive line, that was maybe being underrated a little bit, going against what was thought of a tremendous defensive line, and had success. Would those things be nice to see happen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe they don't.
Yes.
Maybe you got no chance. Maybe Penn State's defense is the best defensive line in the country, not Florida State's, and you struggle. But that's one of the fun things to watch, and I think that showed itself Saturday for a team in Florida State that had already penciled itself into the playoff. Now has a lot of work to do. Go ahead.
So do you think, and again, you don't know, but has the West Virginia offensive line, all due respect to those guys, taken a step back?
How do you know? You lost one of the best offensive linemen to ever play here.
Right.
That is hard to be as good as you were. But as we have said, and oh, by the way, don't forget about Doug Nestor.
Right.
Who's also was in an NFL camp. But you're replacing it with a bunch of experienced guys. Okay, that's part one. How do they perform in this situation? Last year, they played extremely well. But Brandon Yates is moving over to a whole new position. And we kind of just haven't talked much about that, right? How's he do in a new position with a lot more responsibility? Then the young guys that you talk to the staff and they tell you they think they might have a couple pros on these young offensive linemen. Does that show itself now, meaning this season? Does it show itself now, meaning game one? And if it does, and that allows you to give some breaks to a Jaquay Hubbard and a Nick Malone, or a Remack if he needs it, and you can put those young guys in and have success, okay, that starts to answer. You don't. Bottom line is you don't know the answer to that question, if they've come back or not.
But boy, what a test early, Tony, going against those two defensive ends, those two ends for Penn State.
No question. And you just hope that being on your home turf helps alleviate that some. And by that, I mean, yes, I do know that the game is always about blocking and tackling.